I'm Gerjan Streng. I'm an architect and researcher at Bright, and I was the workshop leader for the workshop Sustainable Energy Production, Panorama Ukraine.
My name is Thijs van Spaandonk. I'm an architect, urbanist, co-founder of Bright, and I was a group leader for two Panorama Ukraine workshops for sustainable energy production and also for resilient neighborhoods.
I'm Roman Zinchencko. I'm co-founder of Green Incubator, innovation researcher, and visiting lecturer at Ukrainian Catholic University. And I was really delighted to be a part of Panorama Workshop Ukraine, contributing in the topics of sustainability, energy, and powering local communities during the times of energy challenges. When we are speaking about the energy transition, it's important to outline the difference between the majority of European countries and Ukrainian communities, because in Ukraine there is actually often the battle in terms of energy between the concept of building back better and building forward. Well, we are in the pro-building forward camp, but many communities, they still are trying to stick to old concept created by the hyper-centralized Soviet energy model, which was serving currently obsolete economic model and distribution of production capacities. Sometimes we tend to be a bit climate skeptic country, and we do not perceive the energy transition as a critical task of the decade and of the century. So that's a big contribution of workshops like the one Panorama Ukraine held, that we are bringing communities into this dialogue where we can discuss the topic of energy transition and how the communities could benefit from it, both in terms of long-term health and environmental perspective, as well as local economic growth.
So in the Netherlands, we're working on the energy transition, which means shifting away from fossil fuels towards renewables. That also means that energy becomes much more visible in our landscape. We see wind turbines, millions of houses with solar panels, but it also means the way we think about energy has to change. When is it available? How much does it cost at what point? And how do we deal with that at a systemic level is something that we deal with every day in the Netherlands.
Yeah, and I think also that it's a transition from a more centralized system, big power plants and the people of the Netherlands as consumers, towards a more hybrid system where production and the use of energy is much more decentralized. And that also means different models of ownership, different roles in the energy system of communities, of businesses, of the people themselves.
So we're in a change that feels really fast, but actually we have a lot of time compared to what is happening in Ukraine. I think overnight Ukraine lost the production and transportation capacity of the whole Dutch system in one night. So the shift from the former system to a new system is much more rapid. And these 6 case studies each have their own specifics on how to deal with this energy transition very fast or on a much more strategic long-term perspective.
Yeah, I can only speak for the group that I was in and the city that we had as our case study, Sense, where we really looked at how can you build a local system with production, the use and the exchange of energy, both in terms of electricity but also heat and what are the local sources. So we really looked at how can you build a system from the ground up.
I can't say that there are universal solutions in terms of certain energy technology. These are more solutions in terms of listening, adapting, and transforming the local energy consumption and production patterns according to the vision for the economic development, vision for the development of the, for example, educational systems, social services, economic infrastructure, as well as driving the economic forces that would benefit from certain type of energy technologies. So I'm often saying that we are technology agnostic, and we understand that depending on the certain specifics, certain demand for the energy in Hromada, in community, there would be different solutions. In some cases, this should be solar energy combined with storage. In some other cases, this might be biomass-fired power plants, or switching from the central heating to thermal heat pumps solutions. But this, my biggest message and my biggest learning, that tailoring to the needs of the communities is one of the critical tasks in designing the energy future and planning the energy transitions for Hromadas. The interconnection between architects, urban designers, community representatives, local government representatives was I think that was a dual-way learning opportunity, and for me personally it was also a huge learning opportunity, because I learned a lot about many Hromadas and their energy needs, as well as the potential economic drivers they have, because when you're working from Kyiv, you're not often getting a lot of that data, and that was the concentrated opportunity to have a deep dive, especially in the cases when we had the representatives of communities in the room with us, not just documentation, but live people speaking about their pain, their challenges, and their activities. I really loved the feeling of collaboration. I really loved the feeling of co-creation. I really had a really good aftertaste from this togetherness, from this joint thinking and joint search for solutions, both in terms of the energy supply as well as certain aspects of local economic development and socio-economic development. That stays with me for quite some time after returning from Rotterdam.
I think one of the successes of the Panorama Ukraine workshop was the collaboration between designers, experts from both the Netherlands and Ukraine, collaborating in a few days on this specific topic. And I think the role of design there really helped to visualize these ideas that was within experts, and in our group we had policy experts, financial experts, really technology experts, working in the broad field of energy transition, and that was super interesting.
Yeah, and during the workshop, on the first day I jokingly said that it's about finding a common language, which is of course makes sense between Dutch and Ukrainian groups, but also between the experts in energy and the designers. We normally don't encounter each other in work, and we use the same words with different meanings. So the first day in the workshop was really about finding the right language and terminology to work together. And the second and the third day of the workshop were much more clear in this collaborative working, which I think was super inspiring in the week, but also in the results. And that can teach us something for how to work on this topic in general in both countries.
I was a group leader in 2 workshops, so I think it's interesting to kind of reflect on both workshops, see what the results were. For me, one of the most impactful things that came out of the workshops was that we took an example actually from a project that was already happening in Ukraine, Kohati, where the other group leader, Anastasia, was involved with, and we took that specific project as a starting point, and we try to elaborate and try to scale up and look for what's necessary to scale up this project and to turn it into a method that can be replicated in other places in Ukraine. And that was really, for us, really insightful, but also in Ukraine it had an impact because she now is actually scaling up that initiative with the help of the workshop. So that was a really tangible results that came out of this workshop.
That was a bit of moment for discovery for me, how local economy and how the communal and utilities and energy services are transformed by the factor of internally displaced people coming to some of the communities and the influence of this movement of people, unfortunately due to the war, that this movement of significant part of the population influences the capacity for local authorities to provide key services, the budget formation, the needs for new architectural, energy, technological solutions as Gramada, the need for redefining transportation model, a healthcare model, and social services model. Honestly, for me, that was a major eye-opener, and that gives a lot of understanding that without practical deep dive into the local context, you can hardly offer some real viable architectural, social design solutions for this community. That was the main driver. And the second, probably also most important learning, was actually about resilience. So resilience is essential characteristic for the people of Ukraine during these hard years, but I saw many more examples of resilience, and I wish these communities that their resilience would flourish and bring the products in the long-term recovery and creation of new future for the communities that become both hosts for those that had to flee their homes during the occupation, and those who are building conditions and support systems for their fellow citizens.
What I really liked is the development of methods. So the case studies were used to come up with tools, toolkits, or strategies that can be applied in many locations, not just in that specific case, and even in the Netherlands. That also involved the learning about communication, so working together as different experts, working with municipalities and localities. What are the tools, the skills, the language that you use to involve other people to come to a collaborative design or collaborative solution? That is something that can be used in many other locations within Ukraine, but also in the Netherlands.
This human connection after the workshop, these networking activities, additional activities, they are also creating long-term value when people are able to contribute to the positive transformation of hundreds of thousands of lives in Ukraine after workshop is wrapped up. And the impression I have that these were not just proposals and designs, these were very important human connection, and I have this aftertaste that people would be willing to continue sharing, learning, and thinking together, because they spend sometimes co-creating. And I do hope this co-creation atmosphere goes beyond the walls of the session rooms of the design workshop area, and would go into practical and daily support and care people are discovering within them during such meetings. And the second part is, it's about of the new culture for defining the cities, for defining how cities talk with citizens, how they are shaped for the long term, and how they are providing services, how they are providing the care, and how they include everybody. So there's a lot of that to learn from many Dutch cities, and I do hope we will have some of these principles integrated into daily lives of Ukrainian cities.